Hello, everyone. I'm certified natural healthcare practitioner Erin Thole, and I'm super excited today because we have Jordan Park from Roots Apothecary and Nature Apothecary here to talk to us about CBD oil, which is a really popular thing these days. You have all these CBD oil shops on like basically every corner around town. But there are some very, very distinct differences between CBD oil brands. I've tried over the last however many years, probably 8 years or so, various professional brands of CBD oil and never noticed any differences with any of them. And then a friend of mine, another practitioner, introduced me to the Nature CBD oil as a potential solution for one of my dogs who was having a lot of anxiety. He was not getting along with my son. And it was a really huge deal because we were thinking we would have to rehome this dog who had all these health issues or put him down. It was like one or the other thing because we didn't want him to bite our kid, So put him on the CBD oil, and literally within a week, he was a completely different dog. And that was a couple of years ago. And he still takes the CBD oil morning and night now. And he's just fantastic. He's a much calmer dog. He'll actually play with my kids now, where before it was always like an anxiety inducing thing to have him around. And now I started taking the Delta 8 CBD oil at night for sleep, and it is the best thing ever. So this is the only CBD oil that I've tried out of probably at least 10 or more different brands that has actually done something. So I'm really excited to have Jordan on today to talk about cannabinoids, CBD, like why this is different, how it works, what they do, all that good stuff. So thank you, Jordan, for being here today.
Right on. No, thank you. Super happy to for the opportunity to talk. And sorry about the lighting a little bit. I'm working from home right now. But yeah, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to put the product into your hand. We've been in this space for about 10 years now. It's been a little bit over 10 years now. So we we've seen it come from its very infancy to this huge boom in popularity, to now it's starting to kind of level out as information is getting out there, and a lot of these fly-by-night companies are starting to die out a little bit on reputation. We're starting to see that the excitement and the honeymoon phase of this space start to kind of peter out, which is great because then it allows for the conversation, the real therapeutic conversation, to kind of re-pick up where it left off 10 years ago before all the excitement and the craze. So yeah, there's a lot to CBD. Even though it's been around for a while now and you can find it almost everywhere, there's still a lot of misconceptions around labeling, around what makes a good CBD product versus other. There's a ton of marketing language and jargon out there that of course within any industry this is the case. It's not unique to CBD. There's just a lot of information, a lot of frills, and we've made it our mission over the past 10 years to not chase any of that and to stay focused on what originally gave CBD its reputation, which is, of course, therapeutic potential. And there are some important things to maintain in order to harness that maximum therapeutic potential, and that's what we're about. And so we hear this same feedback from a lot of people, is like many times a week. Oh my gosh, this is the first CBD product I've tried that actually was working. Some people will say they've been taking it for like 2 years just because people have been saying it's good and they've just been kind of like going through the motions.
Yeah, I heard this is good for me.
Yeah. And then we'll go over to our product like, whoa, this is wild. Or we have clients that have a bad taste in their mouth because of they kind of thought they got taken by this novelty trend, and we try to reintroduce them to it, and they're like, well, yeah, this actually is doing something for me. And we're not like these revolutionary scientists that are reinventing the wheel and tinkering away all day, studying how to make things better. Although we are constantly evolving and iterating, what has made us very successful in the therapeutic department is not complicating it, sticking to the original form of CBD that gave it its reputation, and then focus on the improvements in genetics that have been made over the past 10 years in the actual plant, rather than the changes and novelty extractions, the hyper processing and the infusions into anything and everything that a lot of the industry focuses on. So just a little intro into what makes us unique there, but there's a ton to unpack, and wherever you want to take it, I'm excited.
Well, you have like a really awesome, I'm going to call it a science center. I don't know what you guys call it on your website. I don't remember, but like where you can actually go through different pieces of literature and data and stuff like that, like on CBD, on cannabinoids, like how they work in the system, and things like that, which I think is awesome to like give people that resource. So can you dive a little bit into like how, like why does CBD work? What does it do in your body? Like, why is this so awesome?
Great question. Yeah. So I'll preface this with, our website is a great resource of actionable information. We could make the info that we have right now almost infinite. We could make it 200 pages of content, and you can go find that information. There's great resources out there, like honestly, cbd.org is a pretty good one if people really want to get super deep. What we've done is really just taken that information and distilled it down into like, what is actionable, what are people looking for, and what it comes down to is your mind body is this very intricate system of dependent parts. Of course, is the concept of the mind body. It's the concept of holistic health, the decompartmentalization of the mind body. And what happens is it's nonstop signaling. It's nonstop messages being sent throughout the body, binding onto the outside of cells, giving information to the inside of the cell for it to execute a task. And of course, this creates a system, this creates a tissue, this creates an organ, this creates an organ system, this creates a response, and it's happening in real time at speeds that we can't even comprehend. And so what CBD is, it's a signal. It's a message. It's an esquinoid ligand, so it's like the actual CBD compound. And when you take it, you are basically taking instructions. You are sending instructions to different parts of your mind body that says, hey, slow down a little bit. Let's execute some auditing processes. Let's turn down this inflammatory response. Let's turn down this stress response a little bit. And then ultimately what happens is, and we can go back and unpack this quite a bit, but ultimately what happens is it helps your mind body shift into this parasympathetic state. And a lot of people have heard this before. It's almost cliche at this point, but it is exactly what we're built on, is helping the body balance this sympathetic and parasympathetic activity, because most people are skewed to dominant chronic sympathetic.
Oh yeah.
And this isn't allowing the mind body to run these auditing and these fine tuning and these growth and reparative processes that are literally essential to every bit of performance, every bit of reparative, every bit of mental and physical well-being is tied into how is your body functioning, and is it able to enter the state of parasympathetic where it can execute these, growth and reparative processes. So it's helping the mind body shift into that state. Of course, how much you take and how often you take it and how long you take it for is gonna, and what form of CBD you're taking too. So this all assumes that you're getting a quality product.
Yes.
Is gonna help you shift in that direction. And but there's a lot of other benefits. People talk about it being good for pain. People talk about it being good for ADD, ADHD. People talk about it being good for sleep. People talk about it being good for focus, clarity, traumatic brain injury, which is one of the first groups of people we ever worked with when we got into this space out of Colorado, was working with veterans that had PTSD and traumatic brain injury. And we get very narrow down these pathways along our journey over the past 10 years, trying to understand what's going on with CBD, and ultimately, as we've learned more and more specifics, we've also learned to zoom it out and put it all together into that explanation that ultimately we're helping shift your mind body into that balanced parasympathetic state. We're not eradicating sympathetic activity, because that would be full-blown suppression. That would be cortisol suppression and depression.
Yeah.
But if we're able to get in that balanced state, all of these things improve. The nervous system tension into night improves, so you're able to sleep better. The inflammatory processes in your brain slow down, so the secondary injury from a TBI isn't as dramatic. That long-term degenerative effect of TBIs isn't as pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
On and on and on. So what the industry became hyper fixated on, though, was one compound, which is CBD. So when I say CBD, I'm talking about a single cannabinoid within the hemp plant. But that's not at all what ours is. Ours is that full spectrum, which you'll hear that word tossed around a lot, full spectrum, full synergy of all potential cannabinoids that are in a specific genetics, a specific plant genetics.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because CBD has a very narrow, has a subset of pathways that it works within, mostly within the endocannabinoid system, the CB1, CB2, and TRPV1 receptor sites. But the symphony of additional cannabinoids, 150, 200, that are discovering more all the time, create this entourage effect where we're interacting with serotonergic receptor sites, inflammatory receptor sites, glial. So we're working with your brain's immunoreceptor sites. Mm-hmm. And all of this creates this holistic momentum towards health, reparative, and growth processes. Yeah. We can dive, like I said, we can dive into any one of those pathways if you'd like, but ultimately that's what it's doing, the shift towards parasympathetic balance.
Which I love, because I talk to clients often, like literally every single day, about that, because everyone is frazzled, but very few people are recognizing that they are frazzled and stressed and like just running on pure adrenaline day in and day out, and your body can't sustain that for a long period of time. So a lot of times I'll have people that are like running through the laundry list of everything that they have to do every single day, but then they're like, but I'm not stressed, I'm used to it. I'm like, okay, well, perceived stress versus what your body actually feels and how your nervous system and your adrenals are like functioning together are two very different things. So let's look at your hormonal panel and see what your adrenals think about what you're doing,
100%.
So yeah. And so often their adrenals are completely in the toilet. Their cortisol level is slammed into the ground because they were for so long just living off of that high cortisol response. And now their adrenals have basically like puttered out, and they just don't have anything else to give. And so their nervous system is just like, like humming all the time. And so I'm constantly trying to get people to do like the breath work and just, those stress management exercises to help get into that parasympathetic nervous system state, parasympathetic state. And I feel like the CBD can definitely help to just kind of couple with that a lot. Like you do the work, you do like the physical manual work of like breathing, learning how to breathe, learning how to use your diaphragm appropriately and like oxygenate your cells. But then from that physiological standpoint, like adding in the full spectrum CBD, that's actually going to help to rebalance and restore, I guess, like that state, like bring you to homeostasis, basically. I think is such a great thing that a lot of people are missing, so we'll do like the adaptogenic herbs and things like that. But the CBD, I think, is is also a really, really great tool, because you have like CBD receptor sites on pretty much every cell in your body, right?
Yeah, and we can talk about, yes, the traditional endocannabinoid receptor site, which people call like TRPV1, CB1, CB2, is very prominent without the body, but we have plenty of other pathways that these minor cannabinoids interact with that are outside of the ECS. So yeah, it goes beyond the traditional ECS on the capabilities of a good full spectrum CBD. But you're speaking my language on the nervous system tension. That's actually like our main focus as a company for CBD and non-CBD product is addressing nervous system tension, either on the high tension state, which is that typical anxiety that you're talking about, that buzzing nervous system where the mind goes, but it's hard to find a place of presence. It's hard to get it into that, what we call like front brain executive functioning, consistent cognitive control, where we as a society are giving authority to our lower brains, which is our reactive brains, so frequently because we're in that elevated sympathetic state, which sympathetic state gives authority to lower brain reactive processes, unless we've trained our nervous system, you know, unless we've felt our minds go to that lower brain reaction, and we know how to recapture them, which takes nervous system control, which takes parasympathetic balance, because we can't have nervous system control without, if we're in a chronic state of fight or flight. So of all the benefits that people, again, bringing it back home, of all the benefits that people talk about with CBD, that's the one that I see as the most impactful to the widest range of the population and to the widest range of health and wellness goals. Because if you don't have nervous system balance and resilience, and I can talk about the difference between those two and how adaptogens and CBD are different in the terms of like resilience building or nervous system calming. But if we don't have resilience and balance in the nervous system, no health and wellness goal is sustainable. Everything is going to be short-term and temporary without nervous system tension control. So that's the foundation. And there is nothing better that I have seen. And we've been deep in this space for a while. It's not a hobby for me. This is my everyday.
Yeah.
CBD is the best thing that we have seen empirically from working with clients, thousands of them, at lowering that nervous system tension in the acute, like quickly. That is in a non-sedating, still giving front brain authority, still very within cognitive control. So it's great for that. And like you said, so many people have heightened anxiety these days, and that's where I think it can be the fastest and most pronounced in most people if you get the right CBD.
For sure, exactly, yeah, because like we talked about in the very beginning, like so many of them don't do anything, but this one is phenomenal. So how do you go about, and I recently started taking your ashwagandha and I really like that. So now I'm doing your Delta 8 at night and I'm doing your ashwagandha throughout the day. And that's been really cool. So talk to me about dosing, talk to me about the adaptogenics and like using them in conjunction with the CBD. How do you know like what to start with in terms of dosing? And what about kids? What would you dose for kids, for like kids that have any kind of like anxiety or stress issues, stuff like that?
Definitely. Okay. And then again, this is all assuming that you're getting a good full spectrum, very minimally refined, non-nanoparticle CBD. That's what we work with. We work with very raw form of the product. And so non-isolated, non-nanoparticle, non-water, it's not even soluble, but water suspended product. So first you decide, are you the right candidate for CBD? And this is, again, from our history and our opinion, we want you on that high side of the nervous system tension, that elevated sympathetic activity, elevated nervous system tension for CBD be a good candidate. We do work with a lot of people who are on the suppressed side too, which looks a lot more like depression.
Mm-hmm.
We call that fatigue dominated. We try to stay away from CBD on the fatigue dominated side. Usually we're trying to bring them up
Yes.
with a more mildly stimulating adaptogens like rhodiola, Eleutherio, Schisandra. So we have this section on our website where it helps you self-assess. Are you in the fatigue dominated state of nervous system dysregulation, or are you in the high tension manifestation? And if you're in the high tension manifestation, CBD is a great option. If you're in the fatigue dominated, you might try something else first, because if we suppress cortisol, because CBD is really great at lowering cortisol.
Yeah.
But hypocortisol is no bueno either. Hypocortisol can have the same, present the same as hyper, like irritability.
Yep.
But it's actually harder, in my opinion, to crawl out of a hypo situation because you don't have the oomph. People in the high tension, they have the energy. They just can't calm down. The
Yeah.
people in the hypo, is so hard to get going. They're moving through molasses. They're irritable. They're snappy. They're lower brain dominant, but in a very withdrawn and non-motivated way, instead of lower brain dominant in the reactive, overwhelmed way that the high tension is. So I put that out there first, and I put that out there for all of our clients, that if you feel like you're fatigue dominated or manifesting stronger on the depression and moving through molasses side, CBD, in my opinion, isn't the first step.
Yeah.
Unless this is a TBI issue. But okay, so assuming we're on the high tension side, we rely entirely on self-assessment. So we say self-assessment based on how whatever you're experiencing is interfering with your daily life. So for example, self-assessment, and we have this on our website as well, like 1 through 4 would be, I'm noticing that I have some anxiety. I'm noticing that I have some stress. I'm noticing that I have a difficult time relaxing, but it almost interferes with my life. None. Like, I have healthy social relationships. I'm able to go to work every day. I can stay focused, but I want to do a little bit better. I want to give my mind body a little bit of a break. That would be like more of a supplementation side of the demographic, and we would say between 20 and 40 milligrams CBD per day is appropriate. So that would be 2 10 milligram or 2 20 milligram CBD servings a day.
Okay.
And then if you self-assess between like 5 and 7, and I say I have the number specifically on the website and it's all relative. But if it's this anxiety, this pain, whether it's social anxiety, whether it's deadline anxiety, whatever's happening, performance anxiety, if it's getting to the point where you can't get out of your own head, where it's interfering with your ability to stay present, your mind is always racing off into the future, and maybe it's ruminating about the past, and presence is an issue. Obviously, that's going to have a negative impact on your performance. It's going to have a negative impact on your social relationships. We work with a lot of people that have social anxieties who like blurt shit out and they don't even need to say it, because that tension is so high in their nervous system that they're reacting with their lower brain.
Yeah.
If this is something that's common, but you're still high functioning, then we're going between the 40 and the 60 milligram per day CBD. And that's typically our 1260. And then we have our more extreme side. This is probably 15 to 20% of our client base. So a smaller percentage of our client base is on the higher end of chronic pain, most typically, or neurotic, like full-blown neurotic, can't control the nervous system. That lump is in their throat and in their chest. They're carrying the physical manifestations of high tension stress, that kind of elephant on the chest, the frustrating lump in the throat, when the emotional lump in the throat all the time. And people who experience this know what I'm talking about.
Like the anxiety attack, panic attack kind of people.
Yeah, that constant feeling like you're gonna have an anxiety attack. Some people are low level with that all the time, and their body's constantly on this what we call capacity. Their operating capacity is so low because their nervous system tension is so high, so they're constantly pressing up against this boundary of panic and control.
Yeah.
We see this a lot in chronic pain. People are very grumpy. People are very reactive because, of course, there are a lot of lower back pain, neck pain, stuff like that. But we also see this in people who are OCD, hyperneurotic, where the people with sensory issues, like people with sensory overload, where sounds are constantly occupying such a high percentage of their brain that like any new information is going to press them up against the boundary. Those people, it's like, okay, this is a quality of life issue. Every day is I'll use the word suffering in a sense. Your performance is down, your ability to hold social relationships is suffering. So those people are going to be more towards the 80 to 100 milligram CBD a day. That's pretty high. And you'll see a lot of companies represent their products as being like 100 milligram CBD per serving. Most of those are complete BS. And those are the products that people, when they take them, they say, I don't really notice anything. You take 100 milligram CBD of our product, you are going to experience a non-psychedelic altered state of mind. So it is going to bring your nervous system tension down. It is going to be in a non-inebriating way a change. So typically saying like people at that spot, they're typically going to run like a 2 to 3 month protocol to get their nervous system tension to a point where it is coming in and out of parasympathetic state as where it probably was not before, and then bringing them back down to that 40 to 60 maintenance CBD once their nervous system finds a home. I don't believe CBD, to answer your question about CBD and adaptogens, I don't believe CBD is great at building nervous system resilience.
Okay.
I believe CBD is good. And I say the word believe. I believe based on seeing it over and over and over and over again for the past decade.
Exactly. Yeah.
Adaptogens are great at building stress resilience. Ashwagandha, rhodiola, holy basil. They have this like stress inoculation effect where it has this on a cellular level and in your HPAT axis where it kind of tuning that stress response pathway so that future insults, future external stressors aren't causing such an increase in nervous system tension. Whereas CBD is really good at bringing that existing nervous system tension down. So so a lot of times we'll see people who will do a 6 month to a year protocol on CBD. They've found a home for their nervous system tension that is much more manageable. Of course, they're doing the work too, because none of this is long-term unless you're doing the work.
Yep.
But then adaptogens rolled in into the middle of that routine and are building resilience into those pathways so that, as you phase down your CBD, if you choose to do that, that operating nervous system tension doesn't continue to creep up, and find that new go back to that operating state of what we call elevated NST. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I did talk a little bit about serving size. What we always say is, unless you're on that extreme side where quality of life is a real consistent issue, start lower and work your way up.
Yeah,
but if you're on the extreme side where every day is a struggle, you start higher and work your way down. But the vast majority, I would say 80% of the people we work with, we're recommending starting in the lower end of that recommendation on that self-assessment, and then working up, after each week, increasing their serving size, maybe throwing one in the middle of the day based off of what their experience is. And that's the great thing about CBD is you can work with your serving sizes. It's very flexible. And it's based on your experience with it, your endocannabinoid sensitivity, your state of operating nervous system tension, your nervous system resilience, your lifestyle. There's so many factors that go into CBD, like a CBD serving size and effectiveness, and to the least of which I think is weight. And we get that question all the time. Is like, well, I'm 220 pounds, and I take less CBD than a lot of our 140, 160-pound female clients.
Yeah.
So the quality of life variables and the self-assessment, I think, are a bigger, much larger factor than a weight chart.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, because there's actually very few things when you're looking at the nervous system or the glands and things like that that are weight based. Like, it's all off of what's actually going on with your specific system. So that totally makes sense. What about, people are going to ask this question, some people have to have drug tests for work and stuff like that. So what about that? Since it is a full spectrum CBD, like, there's going to be a little bit of THC in there. So
yeah, unfortunately, if you're getting drug tested for work, we don't recommend you take our specific CBD. In that case, I would say something is better than nothing, and you might be interested in the isolates. So that CBD, the true CBD isolates, where it's just CBD compound. The therapeutic effect on those are much less, but you're not going to lose your job for a potential pop on a drug test. Of course, our CBD products are going to be well within specs, so we're always going to be below that 0.3% THC threshold. But it's not worth the risk of testing hot and losing your job, or especially if you're on probation, getting yourself back into a correctional situation. It's not worth it. In that case, we would recommend people to our adaptogenic products, like our anxiety tincture. Our anxiety tincture is a non-CBD herbal that is intended to do the same thing to nervous system tension, to lower it, because it's got that holy basil, that skull cap, some of those more calming of the nervous system adaptogens. It's a great blend. Still think CBD is more powerful, way more horsepower behind it. It's more holistic in nature because of those minor cannabinoids if you're using a product like ours. But the anxiety tincture is, I would take it over an isolate if you can't take a full spec for any reason.
Okay. That makes sense. This is super interesting. I think that people are really going to dig this, because I get questions about CBD from time to time, relatively frequently. What do you think about this? I'm like, this is the brand that I recommend. I am not an expert on CBD. I just know that this works, so I was excited to do this video with you today, because this kind of gives people some of that, straight from the expert's mouth, which I am not, kind of thing. So I'll put my link for your products, your company, below in the notes for this video, so people can go there and poke around and check it out and try some things out. And do you want people to email you, Laura, somebody, if they have questions on products or anything like that?
Yeah, product knowledge questions, Jordan@rootsapothecary.com. You can put it in your thread. I really encourage people to check out, before they contact me, the CBD 101, because it does go into a little bit deeper of a dive, but it's skimmable and there's titles, so you can go straight to the self-assessment page. And it goes into some more specific pathways that we glazed over today. And check out our entire roots.edu section, because we have the Adaptogen 101, we have the stress manifestation guide. The stress manifestation guide is really important. Make sure that you are a good candidate for CBD to begin with, if you resonate with the mental and physical manifestations that we've laid out there. I'm sure we could do 3 or 4 more of these, because there's a ton to unpack in terms of like labeling and different types of extractions. The history of CBD is very interesting. The marketing space of CBD is interesting. There's so much happening, I understand how overwhelming it is in the retail space for a consumer who doesn't have 20 hours, 20, 40, 60 hours to dedicate just to the diligence on how this whole space started and where it went, yada, yada, yada. So I'd like, if you'd ever like to talk more about any of those in specific, just let me know.
Sure.
Definitely all interesting topics.
Awesome, for sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll put the info with this video, and then yeah, if people have questions, they can reach out. You want to kind of poke around on the website and learn more and take the assessments and see what's going to work best for them. They have the opportunity to do that as well via the link. So thank you very much, Jordan. I appreciate this. This is
Awesome.
great information. So we will talk to you probably again soon in the near future. And if anybody has any questions or areas that they want Jordan to expand upon, just drop us some questions, some notes below the video, and we'll get those answered for you. So thank you for joining us. See you
Would love
next.
to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.